RTA is so wacky this season. I mean, compare it to last season and the season before and the season before that. RTA, there's so many different units that are actually viable to be picked. The tier list based on win rate, by the way, that's what we're doing today, is the tier list based on win rate, is so much different than the last season where like LD5s dominated the season before that and the season before that. So today we are going to do this is a tier list based on win rates for the top 50 most picked units, and then also we're going to compare it to, I did both these tier lists, but it's based on public information. It's not proprietary information that anything that I did special. I just made the tier lists based on that information. So we're going to take a look at a tier list based on win rate for this season versus a tier list based on win rate for last season and kind of discuss what we think about this. So disclaimer, this is a tier list for RTA World Arena based on win rate. I already said it 5,000 times. This is not based on my opinion, not based on my opinion of what units are good or bad. This is based on just like whatever the higher level players... Let's try that again. Whatever the higher level players are doing in RTA, what they're picking, and then what they're winning with. What they're winning with. Remember, this is going to be on average 50%, right? Because for every win, there has to be a corresponding loss. You can't have like a match where two people both win. I mean, there's draws, but you can't have matches where like everyone's like, we both win. Like, no, it's got to be 50%. It's got to be the average win rate. So, yeah, that's disclaimer number one. Disclaimer number two, these units are the top 50 most picked. If you're wondering why a unit is not here, it's because it was not one of the top 50 most picked. I'm going to say this, and I know there's still going to be people commenting like, well, why isn't this in here? Why isn't the Dark Demon in that list, Bagel? What's the... Like, it's not the top 50 most picked, so that's why he's not in the list. So, yeah, there's a lot of units that are viable in RTA in one way or another that are not on the list because they're not one of the most picked units. So let's get it started. This is the tier... this is the tier rate. I was going to say tier rate. This is the tier list. So, we have at the very top, Nana and Tianlang. Nana has just been... I hate to say that. It's like, oh, like, I have no idea why Nana's winning. That seems so weird. It's like, I've picked Nana. I've lost once with Nana, and I've picked her in a handful of other matches, and she just wins. Like, it's not like a super amazing... She doesn't do anything super amazing ridiculous. It's just she's effective because the enemy is trying to snipe something out from you, and then she just brings it back. She can't be reset or anything like that. So, I mean, she can be oblivioned, but if you snipe something out from the enemy first, then it's a snowball effect, right? So, she is effective. I think that she's going to drop in subsequent seasons just because people are going to get better, or even this season, throughout the rest of the season, just because people are going to get better at dealing with her. I think her win rate already dropped a bit from the beginning of the season. It was higher, if I recall correctly, but Nana's just people trying to figure out how to deal with Nana, I guess, still. But her win rate is pretty good. Because, I mean, again, you have to oblivion her or just kill something twice. And also, she's got some crazy combo potential of different things. Like, for example, like demons. Like, demons, prevent revives. Like, Wind Demon is a counter to her. But the Dark Demon, potentially, with Nana is pretty nuts. And then we have Tianlang, who's just counters basically everything. He counters half the units on this he counters half the units on this list, to be honest. He counters this one. Can you guys see my cursor? Yeah. He counters this one, this one, this one, this one. What else is it? This one, this one, this one, this one. He counters a lot. He counters a lot of this one. Yeah, he counters a lot of units. This one, this one. Yeah, so anyway, this one. Or actually... Yeah. Anyway, so Tianlang, always OP, nothing changed. This, however, the SS tier, so this is 53% win rate. Nana has a 54.17% win rate. Tianlang has a 53.45% win rate, which is actually, this season, again, is more balanced than it was previously, because you used to see just like the top list was dominated by LDs, which had like all the crazy win rates. Although I will say that I think this is a bit skewed, because I think there are some super dominant crazy whales that have been playing less this season. I'm not sure if that is impacted by SWC. I would assume that that is also impacted by SWC. Like, people want to play less, they want to give away less of their strategies because they want that big jackpot from SWC. So we'll see if this actually does wind up going back to a little bit closer to the previous seasons, like just dominated by LDs, after SWC is over. I'm curious to see if that's actually how that plays out. So weird, very weird, because you usually don't see Wusa very high on the tier list for the last few seasons. Just as like, oh, just bring strips into him. He is currently sitting at a 52. He's in double S tier, 52 to 53% win rate. He is the number 3 highest win rate currently. Number 3 highest win rate currently, 52.15% win rate. 52.15% win rate. Okay. So he did get a change to his skill too, basically, is what he got a change to. But yeah, I'm just surprised because it does damage. Like, you don't need crit damage for it. I have crit damage on my Wusa, which really needs to be changed. He just should be on HP. Just fast and tanky. A lot of people building him violent for currently, so violent will, just fast and tanky, speed, HP, and his second skill is just based on his HP. And then you see like some normal things. You see Kitian Dasheng, you see Ragdoll, which is, you know, these always, actually Kitian Dasheng didn't used to be super high on the tier list, but Ragdoll's always been, is Ragdoll. Gianna's always been the high on the tier list. That's nothing new. So yeah, and then Kitian Dasheng got a buff a few patches ago, and he's just always been high based on that. So this is one that you may not be familiar with. A lot of casual players not familiar with Charlotte being so high on the tier list for win rate. So Charlotte, let's see, Kitian Dasheng is 52.1% win rate, Ragdoll 52.07, Charlotte is 51.84. So you may not be very familiar with Charlotte being high on the list, but Charlotte has been doing pretty good. It's hard to like CC, not to CC her. It's not that hard to CC Charlotte, but she can cycle her first skill into getting additional turns. Like if you try to reset Charlotte, she can just proc a sleep with first skill, get another turn, proc a sleep with first skill, get another turn, and then have access to more skills again. So it's kind of hard to stop Charlotte. Whereas for like with Shengpeng, which I think personally Shengpeng is a stronger unit. For me personally, like if I try to take Shengpeng into things, I will win more often than if I will take Charlotte into things. However, Charlotte does have that opportunity to cycle there. All of them, both units though, however, have extra additional damage artifacts value. So they do multi-hits with skill 3. Charlotte does a multi-hit, attack gauge decrease, and attack gauge increase for your team. So I guess I should be using Charlotte more, because I'm one of those that, actually, no. I'm one of those that I don't use Charlotte on my main at all. I use Charlotte on my Europe server, and she's a Swift Charlotte. She's like 300 and something speed. So that's where I use Charlotte, but I don't use her in the typical sense how people use her. I just use her as a turn 1 unit that people are not expecting. Like no one's expecting her to be on Swift 300 plus speed. So if I need to contest speed, I bring Charlotte out at the end, and people forget about her third skill was changed like 9 months, a year ago, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, Charlotte's super good sleeper unit. Karnal is actually the most picked unit. I think Karnal and Nana are the most picked units this season. 44% HP lead, nice bruiser. He does additional like all these units are, maybe not all of them. A lot of these units are really good with additional damage and artifacts, additional damage artifacts. This is actually additional. If you don't have crit damage on Diana, you can get a decent amount of damage from additional damage artifacts as well, because she's got those multi-hits when she cycles. You know she's going to cycle 300, 400 times anytime she gets a turn, right? So, yep. And then Hathor actually making a comeback. When artifacts came out, Hathor was not really as... people kind of subbed out Hathor for Oki, since Oki was much stronger. And then Hathor has been making a comeback because she just has a lot of utility. But, yeah. Then we have Gianna's always strong because she's Gianna. Actually, I'm surprised that Savannah is not a little bit lower, because Leo, and a lot of people like to pick Leo very aggressively. Kind of generally towards the end of the draft. He's not always the best pick, but, you know, Leo, Ragdoll, Vertiheel, Lulu is a toxic combination of turn cycling nonsense. Then we have Pontos, who after the buff has been much more useful. We have Diana, who is just... Diana, I feel like... Well, we'll take a look in a second, but I feel like Diana is just higher on the tier list than she used to be. Diana has a... Let's take a look at the win rates. I'll post all this in a comment as well. When I post the video. So we have Charlotte 51.84% win rate, Karnal, 51.78% win rate. Hathor, 51.63% win rate. Gianna, 51.6% win rate. Savannah, 51.6% win. I like Savannah personally. I just feel like anytime I try to use Savannah, I'm like, they just pick Leo, and I'm like, okay. Maybe I should use Savannah more, because I absolutely love to use Savannah. She fits my playstyle. I adore her. Pontos, 51.23% win rate. Leo, 51.08%. Leo loves to get banned, though. Loves to get banned. Diana, 51.02% win rate, just barely up here. Okay, so then we go into the A tier list, which is Lulu and Friends was actually super. That little nerf to that skill 2 lowered the win rate enough for her to be more actually balanced. Also, I think that the lack of the crazy LDCC units up here actually dropped this, because she's very effective against things that were like triple S tier. So let's see what else we have. So Lulu and Friends, 50.91% win rate. So this tier is just 50 to 51% win rate. So it's I mean, it's kind of about like right here is about average, right? So also cool that we see Riley over here, the Win Totemist, is actually being picked enough to be one of the top 50 most picked, and actually has a decent enough win rate. So then we have this guy who has been much higher on the tier list last season. This was higher on the tier list last season, right? We have just fast, aggressive units. And again, I think that there's some of those units, some of those players, some of those super top-level whales that just like LDs, and that's why we see some of these units, maybe because of SWC, that's why we see some of these units that were like triple S tier last season, and Nepthys too, triple S tier, that are not as high this season. You see like Nana and Wusa here for this season. So anyway, it's just weird to see the win rates this season compared to what you would normally expect from the past few seasons. It's a very different landscape. Is that a good word to use? Landscape. So we have Molly, which is Molly seems to not ever work for me. Oh my god, 100% win, 100% resistance units. They don't ever work for me, and I keep just sitting there with like all the debuffs on them, and I'm like looking at this, I'm like, they're 100% resistance. The Lulu, the Molly, the Annabelle, those units on my account are 100% resistance. Don't resist anything. They never resist anything. They're just sitting there with just all these debuffs on them. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Contrast like, we just don't like you, Bega. Oh, okay. They don't resist. For me, they don't seem to ever resist anything. So anyway, yeah, we got some more OP stuff, some more OP LDs, some more units that have strips, and we got some strippers, we got some debuffers, we got some crazy, like these things can solo matches, these things right here. We got Pontos, which is actually very good. I mean, Leo's a counter to Pontos, Diana's a counter to Pontos, etc., etc. But Pontos a great unit against things that anti-CC things, right? Like Pontos, a lot of people bring in Junos and Lulus, and where's Molong is somewhere. And then Pontos is a really great counter to that. He's actually higher on. I really felt like he was going to be lower on the tier list than he used to be, but he can't. He got buffed. What, 6 months ago, 9 months ago to his skill 3. They just kept buffing him just a little bit in patches for a while, but it wasn't like he didn't get a recent buff either. Anyway, we're not really talking about Pontos. Did I keep saying Pontos Poseidon? We're not really talking. Guys, I always get lost on tangents. I'm always lost on tangents. We see Juno, very strong unit. We see Kinky. Kinky used to be actually higher. Kinky did get a little nerf to the activation for the passive. Also, people are picking things like this as a counter to Kinky, this counter to Kinky, this counter to Kinky. What else counter to Kinky? Right, because Kinky can't be crit on, so a lot of people using just pure damage from like Molong or like Ciara damage bombs, Gianna damage, bomb damage, and then again this is pure damage as well. So a lot of people using that against Kinky. So Kinky lowered in the win rate based on people getting better at countering, and also the little nerf that he got. And then we have Samath and Ganymede, both. I actually think Samath is a kind of underrated unit. I feel like people could even pick him more aggressively than they do. And then Ganymede is always going to be a fairly good unit for RT. He just enables anything that's OP, he just enables it, right? To be more OP. And then we have Shung Pung. It feels like Shung Pung should have a higher win rate than this, but he just has a crazy high pick rate. It's not that he's always winning nonstop. He's a very good unit. but I feel like Shunpung should have a higher win rate. But anyway, it's not really based on opinion. This is a tier list based on win rate. So win rate is win rate. Numbers are numbers. There's not really any opportunity for me to disagree with it. That's the number. I could try to analyze why it is, but and then we have Yen Hong, who's always a pretty strong unit overall. She's got a super fast. She's got a strip on skill 2, multi-hit, does damage based on speed, does pretty decent damage as well. Verti-heal's always a nonsense toxic unit. We see 2 speedy strippers over here, and then we see Riley, which I'm actually surprised. Riley is kind of interesting. I fought, which one was it that I fought the other day? I fought one of them, and I'm like, I'm not too worried about it, right? So I'm like, oh, I'll just stack it and then silence it and then control it and then like increase the cooldowns. I'm like, you can increase some of the cooldowns. You cannot increase all of the cooldowns. She's just gonna stack when you hit her, and then she's just gonna do her skills regardless. So it's actually just the way that she works with the stacked totems, different than regular skills, is actually makes her more viable than you'd realize, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see a fusion unit actually being very useful. And then we have over here, we have Praha, we have Antares. Antares has he's just however he's feeling that day. He'll win, he'll lose based on how he's feeling that day. We have Praha here, which is, I really like to use Praha. Sometimes, I was going to say sometimes she works, sometimes she doesn't. No, sometimes she wins, sometimes she doesn't, but it's not really. Praha does what Praha does. There's no RNG related necessarily. I mean, strips, maybe she'll strip, maybe she won't. Hey Gang actually over here with a 48 to 49% win rate in here. We can actually, I'll leave it in the comments. I don't want to keep saying every single specific unit's win rate. Vanessa over here, which I think Vanessa can have more utility than is actually. I don't really see a whole lot of people picking. Well, Vanessa is one of the top picks, so I guess I can't say that. On the lower end. Vanessa's on the lower end of the top picked. Yeah, only picked 4.8% of the time versus like Hey Gang, which is picked 33.7% of the time. So, I think Vanessa has more viability though. I mean, based on just the speed lead, and then also Vanessa got 2 buffs also. And then Annabelle, which is another unit that I really like to pick. Annabelle, Ciara here. Ciara, you would expect to see Ciara higher on the higher on the tier list. But Ciara's just picked a ridiculous amount of time. Ciara's picked in 47.9% of matches. She's not always winning. She's just picked in 47.9% of matches. So, and Ciara is, Ciara is all RNG. Like, Ciara could disappoint you. She could just not proc. She could not land her bombs. She could do basically nothing. And then she could also proc every turn cycle, crit every turn, land every single bomb, and absolutely obliterate teams. It's RNG, just like Antares is RNG. So over the course of time, RNG is going to equal out. You're going to see some insane CR matches. You're going to see some terrible CR matches where she does crazy things and she does disappointing things. And then we see also the Fire Art Master. Nice to see that he's actually in the top 50 pick. People kind of dropped him off the bandwagon as soon as he got nerfed. He got his the scroll time nerfed as well, and he also got the he has no speed buff now with the skill 3. So then we have, so he wasn't used as much with things like Poseidon and Savannah and things like that. We have Molong, which is another one of the top picked units. He's in 42% of the matches, 42.78% of the matches. That's not his win rate, that is his pick rate. Like half the matches are Molong matches. And then we have Douglas over here, which is a nice counter to because he can just revenge and just start, like, for example, if your opponent's picking like a Charlotte and a Ganny and things like that, he can just keep revenging and just comboing his second skill into his first skill. Does a lot of damage potentially. Then we have all these things over here, D tier, below 48% win rate. Again, these things could be effective. Like, they could be your best option for whatever the match is that you're going up against. But, yeah, but 48% win rate regardless. So we got Barbara, we got Chloe, we got Oki. I am surprised to see Oki below 48% win rate. Oki has a, what is his win rate? 47.82% win rate for Oki. And then Bastet, which, she's not the fastest. If Bastet had 10 faster base speed, this would be a different situation. We got Kaki, which is a lot of times picked against like ragdolls and other super top ragdoll kinky things. We see Sekhmet, who was really not picked the last season, the season before that, very much at all. And you see her as one of the top 50 most picked units. Then we have Fran, who is another one that she's in 7% of the match. She's actually not too much of the matches. And then we see Fengyan, which is another one that's really not picked too much. He's on the lower side of the top 50 most picked units. And he also is on the lower side, 46.55% win rate for Fengyan. So interesting. So now we can take a look at this compared to, I just thought that was interesting to put it out in a visual sense for you, because again, it's not proprietary information or knowledge. It's out there for everyone to see. So let's take a look at this based versus the last season. And I think some of you guys, you may already know, you may already be like, oh yeah, Bega, I kind of see what you're talking about when it's like some of these super whales that have like a ton of like 20, 30, 40, 50 LDs. Or more. Not really been playing so much this season. Or even picking, maybe they're not playing as much. Actually, maybe it's not playing this, maybe they're not playing as much. Maybe they're not picking as many crazy LDs. But honestly, I've seen their play rates, and they are actually playing less than last season. So I'm not sure if it's SWC impacting that, but they're definitely playing less than last season. So we see over here, this was last season's. And some of these win rates were crazy. Some of these win rates were, like, for example, let's take a look at the win rates. Tianlang, 55% win rate. Gianna, 55-14. Gianna is 54.7%. This is last season. This is the last season, this one. Nepthys, 54.64% win rate. Han, 54.41% win rate. Kitian Dasheng, 54.37% win rate. Wunsa, 53.77% win rate. So we see all these things, crazy high win rates last season. And it's like there's just a little group of whales, like mega whales, like super, like six-figure whales that have these units, and they love to use them in RTA, and they are the ones that are dominating with this stuff and the crazy insane runes. And that kind of skews the numbers for everything else. So we see all the LDs, which is why it's so crazy to see, like, this season, some of these units, like, these units up at the top of the tier list is ridiculous versus last season where it's just, like, all dominating win rate from whales. And those super high mega whales, super high win rate mega whales, like, they do skew the numbers just because their runes are absolutely ridiculous. Like, they're using 300 speed violence sets. So, it's absolutely crazy. And then we have, and then all the LDs that they have, they just win and win and win and win, because, like, how are you going to counter all those LDs at the same time? You can counter like 1 or 2 LDs reasonably, but some of you are like, I can't counter 1 or 2 LDs reasonably. But there's some people that just have like just so many dozens of LD5s because they've spent 6 figures on the game. And they're just like, I could just, you know, you're going to have, you can counter 1 or 2, but you're going to have a hard time countering everything. Also, this is Kinky over here. If you guys can't see, that's Kinky. That's Lulu. For whatever reason, the watermark is in front of the units. But yeah, this is kind of similar to like what you would normally expect. These aren't necessarily the top 50, the top 50 most picked units. I should just claim that too. These are not necessarily the top 50 most picked units for last season. They're not the same exact units for both seasons. They just, this is where the units from this season's most picked would have ranked in last season for win rates. So we see, again, this is fairly similar for, or not fairly similar, fairly what you would expect from last season and the season before and the season before that, right? This is kind of what you would expect from here. But yeah, just this season is absolutely crazy in comparison. You see all these LDs just sitting here, Nepthys and Wunsa and Han and Volantis and Asima, like just all sitting here at this rank. You see Yan Hong over here. It's just crazy. So, and don't get too hung up about the like triple S, double S, single S, A tier, whatever. It doesn't really matter what SSSSs or Bs or Cs or Ds. It just matters the win rate. That's all that really matters. We're just talking about the win rate here. So anyway, that's it for this one. I think that is it. I think I'm done talking and I can finally shut up now, guys. I know you're so excited. We're all very excited. So anyway, that's it for this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I just want to do this. I don't know why I wanted to do this. I just thought it'd be fun to see this season's win rates in a tier list format versus last season's win rates in a tier list format. So anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you as always in the next one.